I never believed in those moments you see in movies, where time just stops and the world narrows down to one person. I thought that was all Hollywood nonsense, manufactured romance for people who'd never felt the real thing. But then I met him on a Tuesday evening at Union Station, and suddenly I understood why people write songs about strangers. I've been having the worst day. Actually, scratch that, the worst week. My boyfriend of 3 years had broken up with me 6 days earlier, leaving me with half a lease and a whole lot of unanswered questions. I'd been staying on my friend Marcus's couch, but even his patience was wearing thin. That Tuesday, I'd gone to my parents' place upstate to grab some boxes of my stuff I'd stored there, and the whole visit had been this awkward dance of my mother not quite asking if I was okay, while very obviously wanting to know everything. The train back wasn't until 8:45, so I'd gotten to the station early, bought myself an overpriced sandwich I didn't want, and settled onto one of those metal benches that seemed designed to prevent anyone from getting comfortable. The station was doing that thing where it's busy, but not crowded, full of people in their own bubbles, everyone heading somewhere that mattered more than where they were. I was scrolling through my phone, not really looking at anything, just keeping my hands busy so I wouldn't think about how Derek had packed up his things while I was at work, how he'd left his key on the kitchen counter with a note that said, "I'm sorry," like that explained 3 years together ending on a random Wednesday. I was so lost in my own head that I didn't notice someone had sat down next to me until he spoke. "Excuse me," he said, and his voice had this quality to it, warm and a little uncertain. "Is this seat taken?" I looked up, ready to give the automatic, "No, go ahead," without really seeing him, but then I actually saw him and forgot how words worked for a second. He had these eyes, deep brown and ridiculously kind, the kind of eyes that made you want to tell them things. Dark hair that was just messy enough to look intentional, and he was wearing this navy blue sweater that looked soft enough to live in. He had a messenger bag slung across his chest and was holding a paper coffee cup that was releasing little wisps of steam into the cool station air. "No, it's free," I managed, moving my backpack to give him more room. He sat down with this grateful little smile, and I went back to my phone, except now I was hyper-aware of him next to me. He smelled like coffee and something else, maybe cedar or sandalwood, something that made me want to lean closer. I could feel the warmth radiating from his body in the slight chill of the station, could hear him settling in, the rustle of his jacket, the soft thud of his bag being placed on the ground. I tried to focus on my phone, but I kept stealing glances at him from the corner of my eye. He pulled out a book, an actual physical book, which somehow made him more interesting. The cover was worn, like he'd read it multiple times, and he opened it with the kind of care people reserve for things they love. "Good book?" The words were out of my mouth before I could stop them, and I immediately wanted to take them back. I wasn't in the mood for small talk. I wasn't in the mood for anything except maybe disappearing. But he looked over at me with this surprised, pleased expression, like I'd given him a gift just by asking. "Yeah, actually, it's one of my favorites. I've read it probably 5 times now, but I keep coming back to it." "What is it?" He showed me the cover. "The Night Circus" by Aaron Morgenstern. It's about this magical circus that appears without warning and is only open at night. But really, it's about 2 magicians who fall in love, even though they're supposed to be competing against each other. He paused, looking slightly embarrassed. "Sorry, I get a little enthusiastic about books I love." "No, don't apologize. That actually sounds really interesting. I haven't read anything just for fun in months, maybe longer." "Too busy?" he asked, and there was no judgment in his voice, just genuine curiosity. "Something like that." I wasn't ready to unload my entire sad story onto this stranger, no matter how kind his eyes were. He nodded like he understood, and we fell into a comfortable silence. He went back to his book, and I went back to my phone, but something had shifted. The station felt less lonely somehow, less like a place I was stuck, and more like a place I was just passing through. After a few minutes, he spoke again. "I'm Adrian, by the way." "James," I said, and we shook hands. His grip was firm but gentle, and his hand was warm from holding his coffee cup. "Nice to meet you, James. Where are you heading?" "Back to the city. You?" "Same, actually. What train?" 8:45. He checked his phone, and his expression shifted, became something softer, almost wistful. "I'm on the 8:15, about 20 minutes from now." I should have just nodded and gone back to my phone. That's what you do with strangers in train stations. You make small talk, you wait for your train, you move on with your life. But something made me ask, do you make this trip often? Every couple of weeks. My sister lives up here with her family. I try to visit when I can. He smiled, and it transformed his whole face. I'm the fun uncle who brings noisy toys and teaches my niece inappropriate songs. I laughed, and it felt strange, like I'd forgotten how. I bet your sister loves that. She pretends to hate it, but she always requests specific songs, so I think she's secretly on my side. He took a sip of his coffee, then offered me the cup. Want some? It's just black coffee, but it's still hot. There was something intimate about the offer, something that went beyond just sharing a drink. I hesitated, then took the cup. Our fingers brushed in the exchange, and I felt this little spark, this moment of connection that made my breath catch. The coffee was strong and bitter, and exactly what I needed. Thanks, I said, handing it back. Anytime. We fell into conversation after that, the easy kind that flows without effort. He told me about his niece, Emma, who was 5 and obsessed with dinosaurs. I told him about my job in graphic design, carefully editing out the part about how my ex worked at the same company, and I'd been avoiding the break room for a week. He talked about his work as a teacher, middle school English, and the way his face lit up when he described helping a struggling student finally connect with a book made something in my chest ache. I think that's what I love most about it, he said, his hands moving as he talked, animated and alive. That moment when you see them get it, when a story clicks for them, and suddenly they're not just reading words on a page, they're living in another world. It's like watching someone discover magic. You really love what you do. I do. I mean, it's hard, and some days I want to tear my hair out. But yeah, I can't imagine doing anything else. He looked at me, really looked at me, and I felt seen in a way I hadn't in months. What about you? Do you love what you do? I thought about it, really thought about it. I used to. Lately, it's been more of a paycheck than a passion. I think maybe I lost something along the way. It's not too late to find it again, he said quietly, and the way he said it made me believe him. His phone buzzed and he checked it, his expression falling slightly. That's my train, boarding in 5 minutes. Oh. The disappointment in my voice was embarrassing, too obvious, too much for someone I'd just met. Well, it was really nice talking to you. He looked at his phone again, then at me, then back at his phone. Something was working behind those brown eyes, some decision being made. You know what? I think I'm going to wait for the next train. What? No, you don't have to do that. I know I don't have to. I want to. He said it simply, like it was the most natural thing in the world to miss your train for a stranger. Unless you'd rather I go? No, I said, too quickly, too eagerly. No, I'd like you to stay. His smile was like sunrise, slow and warm and full of promise. Then I'm staying. We watched his train pull into the station, watched people board with their luggage and their lives, watched it pull away without him. He didn't even glance at it, just kept his eyes on me, and I felt something shift in my chest, something that had been locked tight for days starting to open. So, he said, settling back into the bench like he had all the time in the world. Tell me something real, James. Something you don't usually tell strangers in train stations. I should have deflected. I should have kept it light, kept my walls up, protected myself. But there was something about him, about this moment, about the way he'd just chosen to stay when he could have left, that made me want to be honest. I got dumped last week, I heard myself say. 3 years, gone just like that. He left while I was at work, didn't even have the guts to do it to my face. And the worst part is, I'm not even sure I'm sad about losing him. I think I'm more sad about losing the idea of him, of us, of the future I thought we were building. I laughed, but it came out bitter. Sorry, that got heavy fast. Don't apologize. Adrian shifted to face me more fully, his knee almost touching mine. That sounds really hard and lonely. It is lonely. It's so lonely. My voice cracked, and I hated it. Hated being vulnerable, hated feeling this raw. I keep thinking I should be over it by now, that a week is long enough to stop feeling like someone carved out part of my chest, but I just feel empty, like I don't know who I am without him. Adrian was quiet for a moment, and I thought maybe I'd said too much, scared him off with my emotional baggage. But then he spoke, his voice gentle. "Can I tell you something? You seem like someone who knows exactly who he is. Maybe you just forgot for a while." "How can you possibly know that? You just met me." "Because in the last 30 minutes, you've told me about your work with this passion in your voice, even though you said you'd lost it. Because you asked about my book, like you were genuinely interested, not just making conversation. Because when you laugh, really laugh, your whole face changes, and you look like someone who knows how to find joy." He paused, and when he continued, his voice was softer. "And because you're sitting here being honest with a stranger instead of hiding behind small talk, which takes courage." I didn't know what to say to that. Nobody had said anything like that to me in so long, maybe ever. Derek had loved me, I think, but he'd never really seen me, not like this. Not like Adrian was seeing me after 30 minutes on a train station bench. "Thank you," I managed, and it felt inadequate, too small for what he'd just given me. "You're welcome." He hesitated, then asked, "Can I tell you something real now, to make it fair?" "Please." "I almost didn't come up this weekend. I've been feeling stuck lately, like I'm going through the motions, but not really living. Teaching is great, but outside of work, my life feels small. I had a relationship end about 6 months ago. Nothing dramatic, just a slow fade until we both realized we were staying together out of habit more than love. And since then, I've been going through my days feeling like I'm waiting for something without knowing what it is." He met my eyes, and there was vulnerability there that matched my own. "But sitting here with you, I don't feel stuck. I feel present. Like maybe I've been waiting for this, for you, for this exact conversation on this exact bench." My heart was doing something complicated in my chest, something I didn't have words for. "You missed your train for me. Best decision I've made in months." He said it with such certainty that I believed him. We sat there for a moment, just looking at each other, and I felt it again, that movie moment I'd never believed in. The station didn't actually stop. People kept moving around us, trains kept arriving and departing, but in our little bubble on that uncomfortable metal bench, time felt different, slower, more meaningful. "Tell me more about the night circus," I said, because I wanted to hear his voice, wanted to watch his face light up again. And he did. He told me about the circus that appears without warning, about the tents full of impossible wonders, about the magicians bound together by a game they didn't choose. His hands moved as he talked, painting pictures in the air, and I found myself leaning closer, drawn in by his enthusiasm and the way he made magic sound real. "The thing is," he said, "they're supposed to be enemies, but they fall in love through their magic, through the things they create for each other, and they have to figure out how to be together in a system designed to keep them apart. Does it work out for them?" He smiled, mysterious. "You'll have to read it to find out." "Maybe I will. I could lend you my copy, but I'm kind of attached to this one. Tell you what, if you give me your number, I'll buy you your own copy and we can talk about it when you finish." It was smooth, the way he worked in asking for my number, but it was also genuine. I could tell he really did want to talk about the book with me, and maybe also everything else. I pulled out my phone. "Okay, but only if you promise not to spoil the ending." "I promise." He typed his number into my phone, and I sent him a text so he'd have mine. "There, now we're connected." "Now we're connected," I repeated, and the words felt significant, like we were saying more than just exchanging contact information. We kept talking, the conversation flowing from books to movies, to childhood memories, to dreams we'd put on hold. He told me about wanting to write a novel someday, about having notebooks full of half-finished stories. I told him about the art installation I'd been planning for years, but never had the courage to attempt. We talked about our families, our friends, the small disappointments and big hopes that make up a life. At some point, without quite meaning to, I'd shifted closer to him on the bench. Our shoulders were touching now, this small point of contact that felt electric and right. He didn't move away, just settled into it like it was natural, like we'd been sitting like this for years instead of less than an hour. "Can I ask you something?" I said, and my voice came out quieter than I intended. "Anything." "Why did you really stay? I mean, I'm grateful, but you're going to get home so much later now and you don't even know me. Adrian was quiet for a moment, thinking. When he spoke, his voice was careful, honest. Because when I sat down next to you, you looked the way I've been feeling, lost and trying not to show it. And then, when you looked up at me, there was something in your eyes that made me want to stay, want to know you. I can't explain it better than that. It was instinct, I guess. A feeling that if I got on that train, I'd regret it for a long time. I'm glad you stayed, I said, and my hand somehow found his on the bench between us. His fingers curled around mine, warm and sure, and we sat there holding hands like teenagers, like people who'd known each other forever, like people who were building something new. Me too. The station announcer called out arrivals and departures, a constant background rhythm to our conversation. We watched people come and go, each with their own stories, their own destinations. A mother with 2 sleepy children, a businessman on his phone pacing anxiously, a young couple arguing in hushed tones near the ticket counter, all these lives intersecting briefly in this shared space, everyone heading somewhere else. But we stayed on our bench, in our bubble, learning each other. Adrian told me about growing up in a small town where being gay meant being invisible, about moving to the city for college and finally feeling like he could breathe. I told him about coming out to my parents at 22, about my dad's initial silence that had lasted 3 months before he'd finally called to say he loved me, no matter what. We talked about the weight of other people's expectations and the freedom of letting them go. Do you ever feel like you're still figuring out who you're supposed to be? I asked. All the time. I think maybe that's just life, you know. We're all just making it up as we go, hoping we're heading in the right direction. That's terrifying. Yeah, but also kind of exciting. Like, anything could happen. We could become anyone. He squeezed my hand gently. We could meet someone on a train platform, and they could change everything. My throat felt tight. Is that what this is? I don't know yet, but I'd like to find out, if you would. Before I could answer, the announcer called for the 8:45 train to the city, my train, now boarding on track 7. We both looked at the departure board, then at each other. That's me, I said, but I didn't move. I know. You could come with me. I mean, you're going to the same place anyway, right? Adrian smiled, this soft, hopeful smile that made him look younger. I'd like that, if you want company. I want company, your company. We stood up, gathering our things, but we didn't let go of each other's hands. We walked through the station together, weaving through the crowd, 2 people among hundreds, but somehow separate, special, ours. When we reached the platform, the train was already there, doors open, waiting. We found seats together near the window, and as the train pulled away from the station, Adrian leaned his head on my shoulder. It should have felt too fast, too intimate for people who'd just met, but it didn't. It felt exactly right. James, he said quietly. Yeah? I'm really glad I sat next to you. Me too, although technically I was there first. He laughed, and I felt it vibrate through his body into mine. Okay, fine. I'm really glad you didn't tell me to find another seat. I almost did. I was having a terrible day and wanted to be left alone. What changed your mind? I thought about that moment when I'd looked up and seen him for the first time, about the kindness in his eyes and the way my instincts had said stay. Honestly, something about you made me want to be less alone. He lifted his head to look at me, and we were so close I could see flecks of gold in his brown eyes, could count his eyelashes if I wanted to. Can I kiss you? He asked, and the question was soft, tentative, like he was afraid I might say no. I answered by closing the distance between us, pressing my lips to his in a kiss that was gentle and sweet and full of promise. He tasted like coffee and possibility, and when we pulled apart, we were both smiling. I wasn't expecting this when I went to visit my parents today, I said. What, meeting a guy who misses his train for you? Meeting someone who makes me feel like maybe everything's going to be okay, like maybe the last week was just clearing space for something better. Adrian took my hand again, lacing our fingers together. I know we just met, and maybe this is crazy, but I don't want this to be just a train ride. I want to see where this goes, if you do. I do, definitely. I paused, then added, Although you should probably know I'm kind of a mess right now. I'm sleeping on my friend's couch, I'm avoiding my ex at work, and I have no idea what I'm doing with my life. Well, you should probably know that I'm terrible at texting back. I watch too much reality TV, and I cry at dog food commercials. We can be messes together. That sounds perfect. The train rocked gently as it sped through the darkness, carrying us toward the city, toward whatever came next. Through the window, I could see lights from houses and streets, little glimpses into other lives, other stories. But for the first time in a week, I wasn't wishing I was somewhere else, wasn't wishing I was someone else. I was exactly where I wanted to be. Adrian pulled out his worn copy of The Night Circus and opened it to the first page. Want me to read to you? Yeah, I'd love that. His voice was soft and steady as he read, painting pictures of a magical circus and impossible love. I closed my eyes and listened, his words mixing with the rhythm of the train, his warmth solid against my side. And I thought about how sometimes the worst days lead to the best moments, how sometimes you have to lose yourself to find something real. I thought about Derek and our 3 years together, and I realized Adrian was right. I wasn't sad about losing Derek. I was sad about losing time, about staying in something that wasn't right because it was comfortable. But maybe that was over now. Maybe I could start being brave, start choosing things that felt real instead of things that felt safe. Adrian paused in his reading to look at me. You okay? Yeah, more than okay, actually. I'm good. Good. He kissed my temple, then went back to reading, and I let his voice wash over me, let myself imagine a future where this wasn't just one perfect night, but the beginning of something lasting. When we arrived at the city station an hour later, we stood on the platform, neither of us quite ready to say goodbye. So, Adrian said, still holding my hand, can I take you to dinner sometime? Like an actual date? I'd really like that. Although, didn't we just have a date? A very unconventional train station date? True, but I want to take you somewhere nice, somewhere I can look at you across a table and not have to share you with hundreds of commuters. When? Tomorrow? I know that's soon, but I don't want to wait. I've been waiting for something to feel right for 6 months, and this feels right. Tomorrow works. Tomorrow is perfect. We exchanged one more kiss, longer this time, sweeter, full of everything we weren't saying out loud yet. When we finally pulled apart, we were both grinning like idiots. Text me when you get home? He asked. Only if you promise to actually text back. For you? I'll make an exception to my terrible texting habits. I watched him walk away through the station, and he turned back 3 times to wave, his smile visible even from a distance. My phone buzzed almost immediately. It was a text from Adrian. Already miss you. Is that crazy? I typed back quickly. Not crazy, I miss you too. Another text came through. Also, I'm buying you that book tomorrow, and maybe we can start a tradition of reading to each other. My heart did that complicated thing again, that feeling of opening up, of letting someone in. I'd love that. As I rode the subway to Marcus's apartment, I realized I was smiling, really smiling, for the first time in over a week. My phone kept buzzing with texts from Adrian, silly observations about his train ride home, questions about my favorite foods for tomorrow's date, a photo of a dog he saw at his station with the caption, "Told you I cry at dog-related things." When I finally got to Marcus's place, he took one look at my face and said, "Okay, what happened? You look completely different than when you left this morning." I met someone, I said, and even saying it out loud felt magical, felt real. At the train station, he missed his train to stay with me. Marcus raised his eyebrows. He missed his train? For you? On purpose? On purpose. Damn, that's romantic as hell. Tell me everything. So I did. I told him about Adrian's kind eyes and his worn book, about our conversation that flowed like we'd known each other for years, about the way he'd held my hand and read to me on the train. I told him about feeling seen, really seen, for the first time in longer than I could remember. You deserve this, Marcus said when I finished. You deserve someone who chooses you, who stays when they could leave. I'm happy for you, man. That night, lying on Marcus's couch, I texted with Adrian until almost 2 in the morning. We talked about everything and nothing, the conversation as easy over text as it had been in person. He sent me a photo of his bookshelf, Promised to show me his favorite used bookstore on our date. Asked if I liked Italian food because he knew this place with the best pasta in the city. The last text he sent before we both finally fell asleep said, "I keep thinking about today, about sitting next to you. I don't believe in fate, but I believe in right moments. Today was a right moment." I wrote back, "It was. Thank you for staying." "Always," he replied. "Good night, James." "Good night, Adrian." I set my phone down and stared at the ceiling, and for the first time since Derek left, I felt hopeful. Not just surviving, but actually hopeful about what came next. Because sometimes the worst week of your life leads you to a train station bench, and sometimes a stranger sits down next to you and decides to stay. And sometimes, if you're really lucky, that stranger becomes something more. Something real, something worth missing a train for, something that feels like the beginning of everything.